Allow me to introduce our guests here to talk about decarbonizing urban mobility, emerging innovations, how they are likely to impact our future. Please welcome on stage Shoba Viswanath, early stage investor at Wefunder, Matthias, Schanze, general partner at Rethink Ventures, Danae, Vara, CPO and co-founder at Gocleer. We also have Benjamin Kafri, Global Head of Innovation, Client Relations and Partnerships at Bloomberg, NEF. Last but not least, panel discussion moderator Emet Zeitz, Head of Ecosystem of Net Zero Insights. Are we ready? Are we all set?
We are all set.
Enjoy.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Emet. I'll be moderating this panel. I work at Net Zero Insights, a climate tech market intelligence platform built for the net zero economy, and proud data partners of Urban Tech Forward. I hope we can all stay focused for 30 more minutes before lunch, and then after this, we'll go to the lunch break. We're about to dive into a topic close to my heart and relevant to all of our daily lives, the future of urban mobility. Before we dive in, I'd like to do a quick round of introductions. So Shoba, if you'd like to start.
Yeah. My name is Shoba Viswanath, and I am from California. I've been a serial entrepreneur. Now I'm an advisor, investor to companies, some in the sustainability movement, one specifically in EV charging right now. So that brings me to this panel.
My name is Matthias Schanze. I'm a founding partner at Rethink Ventures. Rethink Ventures is a Munich-based specialist venture capital fund focusing on the decarbonization of transportation. So how can we take out the emissions out of the transportation of people and goods?
Hello, my name is Danae Vara. I'm the co-founder of Gocleer. We are a Spanish startup decarbonizing urban mobility and also helping startups grow and taking a care for tech for good.
Hi everyone, my name is Benjamin Kafri. Everyone call me Benji, so you can call me Benji as well. And I lead innovation for Bloomberg NEF. So we are a department in Bloomberg looking at doing research on the transformation to a low carbon economy in the future, and one of our key pillars is decarbonization of mobility of people and goods. So, yeah.
Great, thank you all for being here. The urban mobility landscape is evolving rapidly, driven by both technological innovations and the pressing need to reduce carbon emissions. Road transport alone contributes around 15% of total CO2 emissions, and it's great to have such a diverse panel here to dive into the innovations, trends, challenges, and drivers in this space. Benji, I'd like to start with you. In your role at Bloomberg NEF, you undoubtedly have a unique vantage point on the industry. Could you highlight the global trends you're observing in the push to decarbonize mobility?
Sure. We are just before lunch, so let me start with the good news before I'll get to kind of slightly more challenging one. But we see a lot going on. We are at record level in terms of electrification. Last year we had more than 10 million new EVs bought, which is more than double digit out of overall EVs bought. So great progress. I was in a conference like this a few years ago and celebrating the first million sold. So fast forward, battery prices, which is a main component of electric vehicles, dropped more than 80%. And we see it takes few years to get the first million, but now we see year after year's record level of EVs on the road, which is good. We see more than 1.5 millions of barrels of oil displaced by electrification every day. And actually an anecdote on that, people imagine that comes from unicorns, entrepreneurs in California driving their Tesla. So partly because of that, but actually the lion's share comes from 2- and 3-wheelers, mainly from Global South. So more than 2/3 of these barrels displaced are actually from 2- and 3-wheelers. So it is a global trend, and it is very encouraging. Now to the kind of less good news. If we look and project forward and where we have to be, if we want to get to a net zero by 2050, our forecasts show we are not really on track yet. So if we look at it by segment, as I said, on three-wheelers, we are actually on track. Two-wheelers, we are close to it, but might need a bit more help. On personal cars, we are behind, not in a massive gap, and things could still kind of accelerate in the right direction, but we'll need to do more. And then where we are really behind is on kind of logistic freight, heavy transportation, which has a kind of big chunk of their emissions, and there will need to be more support, more policies, and more innovation. And one point on that as well is it's important to remember the drivers are not just climate. So some of the drivers, especially for big cities, are around air quality and saving lives. It's about congestion. Our forecasts show close to 2 billion cars on the road by 2040. So we'll need innovation also on the kind of shared mobility, optimization of routes, more data from connected cars, and not just on the electrification bit. So yes, just kind of some trends, some kind of more work to do.
Great, thank you. Even though I guess we're behind, it still sounds like you're optimistic, so it's always great to see that. You mentioned other drivers besides just pure technological advancements. Shoba, I'd like to turn it to you. Coming all the way from California, where California has been at the forefront of EV rollout, and that's been underpinned by various policies. Could you discuss how these policies have shaped this adoption?
Yes, I would say initially, both California state and federal, U.S. federal, had a lot of grants they were giving to people purchasing EVs, anywhere up to $12,000 per EV, depending on your income level. I think that motivated a lot of people to initially get into Teslas and start the adoption. Some of those paybacks have gone down some, but it has overall encouraged more car manufacturers to manufacture EVs. And there are also some mandates by California state to car manufacturers that by the year 2035, all cars sold in the state of California have to be EVs. And right now it's about 25%, but by 2035, all cars have to be. And there's also a lot of incentives in terms of EV charging infrastructure. Both California state and federal are putting a lot of money into reimbursing manufacturers, installers, maintenance, everyone who has anything to do with charging infrastructure. And by the year 2025, which is 2 years from now, California state will have 250,000 EV chargers available for people to use.
Yeah, awesome. California is definitely a unique spot in the U.S. What challenges do you see the rest of the country being able to catch up?
Well, I mean, I think some of the progressive values that California has have to be adopted by other states as well. And I think partly that comes from some help from federal money and helps from tax incentives, things like that. But overall, it's not just the United States. It's like he's talking about global, and though the spread of EV adoption and other hybrids or hydrogen fuel cell needs to spread over America, there needs to be adoption around the world as well.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. So trying to move on a little bit past EVs now, I think kind of the Teslas of the world have definitely pushed EVs forward, and now all the major car manufacturers are producing their own EVs. And so from my understanding, from the investor's perspective, it's no longer the focus. So moving it over to Matthias. At Net Zero Insights, we've mapped out over 5,000 different transport companies globally, early stage startups. How do you navigate this landscape, and what are the most compelling innovations that you're seeing and you're looking for?
So first of all, I would like to draw the attention away, as you said, from EVs. So don't think of a pink elephant, and please don't think of a Tesla. So coming back to Benji's numbers, that is usually on the top of mind in the public opinion. So decarbonization, a Tesla. Decarbonization, the passenger car. So I would not disagree or agree whether we are on track or not. I think the numbers are pretty clear. What I would like to draw the attention to is to other forms of transportation that take up and produce a huge amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So in particular, the transportation of goods, the whole freight sector. So if you look at road transport in Europe, for instance, between 25 and 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from trucks. Long distance trucking, short distance trucking. So we put our focus on where can we always look from an investor perspective, and we always look at startups. So where are the pockets of change? Where are the levers? Where we can have the best impact, the biggest impact, positive impact on the environment? And I give you an example. So last year we invested in a highly unsexy topic, and that is rail cargo. So rail cargo, probably not, you will not find this topic on another panel here today. So the best way to decarbonize transportation of trucks, or the emissions of trucks, is you don't need trucks. You transport goods via rail. Now, that has been possible for the past 100 years, but it has been exactly the same way for the past 100 years. That means, I don't know, I see a bit older faces here, sorry to say that, but if you remember how you booked a hotel in the 90s or in the 80s, you know, you would dial up hotels in Italy to see if they have something available in August. This is how you book a train today if you want to transport cargo from Stockholm to Rome. This is how you do it today. So we invested in a startup that has a digital solution to it, which is not that difficult, but they have actually managed to get traction on it from players that have been used to the old ways for the past 50 years. And that is the sort of thing that we would like to focus on. So where are the big levers? How can you change stuff? How can you invest in startups that not address the next Tesla, but that address solutions that are overlooked so far? Like transportation of goods, like rail cargo, like, for instance, also parking in inner cities. So there's a lot where you can do, there's a lot where startups have solutions, and that's what I would like to draw the attention to.
Awesome. Speaking of startups and working in cities, let's pass it over to Danae. As we transition to sustainable transport systems, there's an understanding that the challenges aren't solely technological, but also behavioral and psychological. So I'd love to hear how Gocleer is addressing this aspect, and yeah, I would love for you to just talk about what you guys are doing.
Sure. So there's many ways on how we can transition to a better, more sustainable urban mobility. Many times we just focus on, let's say, more of a hard tech, meaning sensors, batteries, EVs, and all this kind of information. But sustainability is also health, as we talked before, with air quality, and also psychological health. And by right now we have 50% of the world population living in cities, and in 2050, it's going to be over 70%. So that's going to be super dense cities. If we only think about exchanging gas cars for electric vehicles, that's going to be super dense. So there is not a life quality there to live for everyone, right? So we are focusing more on the soft tech part, let's say. I'm also running, let's say, a little bit away from hardware and EVs. And what we're doing is we are helping into changing the modal shift and the activities and the behaviors of the citizens. As we talked before in other panels, cities are made of people. It's basically what it is. Right now, there's a lot of policies like fines and low emission zones, and you have to change your car and these kind of things. But we're trying to go in another direction, more in a more incentivize and empower people to make those choices. So by using our app, what we do is using the sensors of the app and the AI, we understand how people move. We understand the patterns, the distribution, and the modality. So multimodality is something that is huge right now when we change from a metro to a scooter to walking, and we cannot change what we don't measure. So we've all seen labels of what you eat, you know what you breathe, you know whatever stuff you do, but you don't know how you move. If I ask people around here, how many kilometers do you do on a day, on a car or in a motor or on transportation, you don't know. So the first part is understanding how you move in order to make better changes. Then we also use behavioral economics and gamification features to improve this, so people can feel better about themselves doing these changes, and also improving by exchanging rewards to make something better and sustainable. And of course, all this information is super valuable. Data is king, right? So we use this data to help cities and corporates understand how people move, so they can plan for the future, so they can do better urban planning, more logistics, transportation organizations. They can understand how measure and change the scope 3 of their employees, of how they're commuting to work, and see those impacts and change those behaviors.
Awesome. Kind of building on that, I know you work with municipalities, and so this is kind of a question for everybody, but let's start with you, is what's the role of public-private partnerships in shaping the future of urban mobility?
Yes, definitely. One thing we've noticed as a startup that, you're also trying always to find your market fit and talking to different sectors. As of today, I can say that the public sector is the most, let's say, urgent, and it has the most interest in moving this forward. Of course, because of policies, because of all the agreements that are being signed up by politicians. And they are very open into innovation, and you can see it. You can talk to people around here, the Police Network, the Smart Cities Network, EIT Urban Mobility, all of these European government and country-wise players are incentivizing these changes a lot. I see the corporations are a little bit farther behind, because unless they get some incentives, fiscal incentives, or some fines, let's say that sustainability might not be on the top of their list. At the same time, in a more optimistic place, I also see that there's a lot of corporations that are now integrating the Chief Sustainability Officer, and those are making changes internally, not only, and it's let's say, company-wise, transversal, so they are making these changes, and I'm sure that these things are going to happen at some point. But definitely, the collaboration between public and private needs to happen, and it's happening right now. So it's just a matter of incentivizing that.
Does anybody else have?
So let me pick up on this public-private partnership, maybe on the role of cities. So from an investor point of view, traditionally, startups that need to sell to governments, so-called B2G business models, have not been investable. So in this sense, it's extremely difficult, it's extremely complex, it takes a lot of time, not very attractive to investors, and it takes a lot of stamina and a lot of very long build of relationships with city authorities. Very, very difficult. Now, at the same time, also, now this is something very fundamental. Somebody has said that most issues that can be solved with a bright mind and some money have been solved. I don't want to argue on that, whether it's true or not. But the point of it was the next big issues that we have, coming back to Benji's point around about congestion. Now, if you want to solve that, it's not enough to have a startup, a bright idea, and plenty of money. You probably need regulation. You probably need some corporates supporting it. You need some startups. So you need to have a lot of stakeholders, including public authorities, including municipalities at a regional level, at a national level, maybe even at an EU level in this continent. So what I'm saying here is, for the next level of problems to be solved, there need to be partnerships between startups, between corporates, and between municipalities and cities. And that's a big issue, but that's what is needed.
Cool.
Yeah, just wanted to add a little dose of optimism as well. So first of all, net zero by 2050 for mobility is hard but not impossible. And even on business as usual scenario, we calculated $50 trillion to be invested just on the electrification side. So it'll be more than 2 trillion going to charging infrastructure. So there is a real opportunity. There is a real incentive for the private sector to move. And a lot of them want to move. The bankers want to fund it. But then where government comes in is also reducing some of the red tape and helping kind of channel it in the right direction. I think we need to think or shift our thinking from kind of clean units or clean vehicles to clean kilometers, and think kind of really where we get more for our buck in terms of reducing emissions, and then channel the carrots and the stick in that direction. And then if we can kind of remove some of the red tape as well, then I think the private sector just want to go there. It just, we need to remove some of the barriers and accelerate everything. Some of these things will happen anyway, but we don't have, a lot of time, so we need to accelerate things.
Everyone has mostly said everything. I'll just add that in California, the state is working with municipalities. You see a lot of the public buses going EV now, which is a positive change. You're starting to see fleet trucks. So there are incentives beyond just personal automobiles in going to cleaner emission vehicles. And yeah.
Okay, great. Benji, I want to bring it back to you. We were discussing earlier about some tipping points in other countries around the world, and what you're seeing kind of on a global scale of when is the acceleration going to happen to reach those goals?
Yeah. So we see some tipping points. I mean, the obvious one, again, on the electrification is when an EV cost less than equivalent internal combustion car. By the way, on personal car, we have passed the peak internal combustion cars already. We won't see that kind of record in, I think, 5 years ago broken. I think last couple of years have been a bit challenging. For the first time, we saw battery prices going up in the last year. Post-COVID kind of pressure on supply chain, commodity prices going up, inflation, plus some kind of geopolitics causing localization of production, which means kind of prices went up for the first time. But the fundamentals still going to drive costs down. And in the next couple of years, at least kind of, Europe, US, we are going to see that parity being reached. And we think that will be an acceleration. For 2 and 3 wheelers in Global South, we see it already. And then kind of for personal vehicles, that will arrive a bit later on. But back to the point we were discussing before, and just to give another anecdote, an example of these areas that are sometimes invisible but so important. On decarbonization of freight, for example, there's a niche called cold chain, which a lot of people don't even know, but it's basically transporting anything that is fresh, or even vaccination for COVID or these kind of things. That's more than 2% of all emissions. That's as much as all aviation today. So that's a small niche, but it's something we really kind of need to pay attention to and resolve. And I think with a little bit of attention, the tipping point there could be very soon as well, and it could make a very big difference.
We only have 3 minutes left. I'd like to open it up to the audience if there's any questions. Sorry, there we go. Yeah, is there any questions for the panelists from the audience?
Looks like no questions. You have exhausted every possible aspect of the discussion.
Okay, great. I have more questions, so I was just opening it up for you guys. I kind of want to put you guys on the spot a little bit. When you think about the future of urban mobility, could you describe it in just one word? And we can't repeat words, so who wants to start?
Sustainable.
I'm still looking for the English word for it. So it's in German, it's teleportation.
Teleportation.
What's the English word for it? Who knows?
Teleportation.
Is it?
I think 15-minute city / remote might help.
For me, it's get moving.
Okay, those were 2 words, but it counts, it counts. Is there anything else that you guys think we might have missed that you really want to highlight, that to leave the audience any message with for today?
I don't want to stand in between now and lunch, so nothing.
I think the get moving part was telling enough.
Okay, great. Let's give a round of applause to the audience and the panelists for...
And thank you very much to the moderator and our guests, and thank you to the audience for staying with us despite the temptation of a delicious lunch coming right now. Enjoy.